No one who entered this room ever returned. Martin had never believed in ghost stories, not truly. Yet, that night, as he approached the abandoned house at the edge of the forest, he felt a chill run through his veins, crawling beneath his skin. The trees surrounding the property loomed like silent sentinels, their twisted branches scratching the sky. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves, a sharp contrast to the faint sweetness of decaying flowers from some long-forgotten garden. The street leading to the house was cracked and overgrown, weeds crawling through broken asphalt. Every step he took echoed in the emptiness, the sound swallowed by the night. He stopped for a moment, listening. There was only silence, except for the faint rustle of leaves. Or was it something else moving? He shook his head and pressed on, telling himself it was just imagination. The house itself was worse than he expected. Windows were broken, some boarded haphazardly, paint peeling in jagged strips. The front door hung slightly ajar, creaking softly whenever the wind moved it. A sense of unease settled in his stomach. Martin's pulse quickened, and he could feel his hands start to sweat. This is stupid. Just take a look and leave. Nothing will happen, he told himself. Inside, the air was thick, musty, and cold. Dust coated every surface, floating in thin beams of moonlight that slipped through the broken windows. The floor groaned beneath his feet, each step a reminder of the house's fragility. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching and moving as if alive. He explored cautiously, flashlight in hand. Each room told a story of abandonment, faded wallpaper, tattered curtains, furniture draped in sheets, and strange stains that hinted at something more sinister. The deeper he went, the colder it became. He shivered and pulled his jacket tighter. He spun toward the stairs. Hard hammering, he took them slowly, one step at a time, the wood creaking under his weight. The upstairs hallway stretched before him, narrow and dimly lit by moonlight. The whisper came again, clearer this time, more insistent, "Martin, come, play." Martin swallowed hard. Sweat ran down his temple. Every instinct screamed to leave, yet something compelled him forward. The first door on the left was slightly ajar, shadows pooling in the corners. He reached out and pushed it open. Inside, the room was empty, or so it seemed. The air was heavier here, pressing against him like water. And then he saw it, a figure in white, standing at the far end, partially obscured by shadows. It didn't move, but Martin could feel its gaze on him, cold and unblinking. A loud crash behind him made him jump. He spun around. Nothing. Just the broken window rattling in the wind. When he looked back, the figure had moved closer. Not fully, but enough. Its face was pale, eyes dark and hollow, lips curled in a faint, impossible smile. Martin's hands shook. "Who's there?" he stammered. No answer. Only the soft, almost melodic whisper, "Stay, don't leave." Fear gripped him fully now. He backed toward the stairs, but his footing slipped on the dust-covered floor. The figure glided closer, silent and unnatural. His breath came in sharp, ragged gasps, and adrenaline surged through him. With a sudden burst of courage, or madness, he bolted, racing down the stairs, out the front door, and into the overgrown yard. Behind him, the house groaned, as if disappointed he had left. The wind carried faint whispers that chased him into the night, echoing in his mind, "Martin, come back." He didn't stop running until the house was nothing more than a shadow among the trees. His heart still pounded, and his hands trembled, but he had escaped, for now. Yet, even as he walked home under the dim streetlights, he knew something had followed him, some lingering presence that would not let him forget. The first night of horror had begun. Martin's legs moved before his mind could catch up. The dark hallway seemed longer than it had a moment ago, shadows stretching across the cracked floorboards like they were reaching for him. The air was colder now, sharper, cutting through the sweat on his skin. He tried to keep his breathing even, but every inhale sounded too loud in the suffocating silence. He reached the front door, or at least where it should have been, but the handle felt impossibly far, as if the room itself had shifted. The hallway twisted in ways that made no sense. He could see the faint outline of the doorway ahead, but every step closer, it seemed to move farther away. A soft whisper grazed his ear, almost gentle, almost coaxing, "Don't leave, stay with us." Martin spun around, swinging the dim light of his lantern into the corners. The room appeared empty. The shadows were still, yet they felt alive, pressing in closer, testing the edges of his sanity. He could smell something metallic, like rust or old blood, faint but undeniable. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice trembling, barely carrying over the strange silence. Only the echo of his own fear answered him. He tried to run toward the door again, heart hammering against his ribs like a drum. The wooden floor groaned under his weight, but it was the wrong kind of sound, too deliberate, too slow, like footsteps pacing just behind him. Martin's pulse raced. He wanted to look back, but fear rooted his eyes forward. He knew if he turned, he might never stop seeing it. Then he heard it, the soft dragging of something heavy across the floor, just behind the wall to his left. Something slow, deliberate, scraping and stopping, then starting again. Martin froze mid-step, sweat dripping into his eyes, blurring his vision. A chill crawled up his spine. He realized the sound wasn't random, it was moving, and it was aware of him. Whoever, or whatever, was here, it was waiting. "Please," the voice came again, almost a whisper, almost intimate, but layered with menace. "Stay, don't leave." Martin felt the walls around him constricting, the shadows pressing against his skin. His instincts screamed at him to escape, to run out of this cursed house, but something deeper, something primal, held him there, rooted in terror. Every step forward felt like walking through water, each breath more labored than the last. Then, out of nowhere, the air in front of him shimmered. A dark shape formed in the corner of the hallway, tall, impossible, shifting. He couldn't make out its features, only the sense of eyes, thousands of them, all watching, all waiting. The lantern flickered violently, casting stuttering shadows that danced across the walls. Martin swallowed hard, hands trembling. I don't want any trouble," he stammered. The voice responded with laughter, low, hollow, echoing from every direction at once. The floor beneath his feet groaned louder, the walls seemed to close in, and the lantern went out. Darkness enveloped him completely. His heart was pounding so loudly he was sure the shadows could hear it. And then, just as he began to panic, a single, sharp sound cut through the blackness, a soft tap, like fingernails against glass, coming from directly behind him. Martin spun. Nothing. Only darkness. Only the cold, the smell of rust, the whispering air. But he knew it had been there, just a moment ago, watching, waiting, testing him. He ran. Every step a desperate gamble, his feet barely touching the floor as he barreled down the hallway toward, somewhere, anywhere but here. The whispers followed, circling, overlapping, calling his name, beckoning him back into the shadows. And then, in the distance, he saw a faint light, warm, golden, inviting. His mind grasped at it like a lifeline. He sprinted toward it, thinking perhaps it was the exit, salvation, anything to leave this nightmare. But as he got closer, the light flickered, warped, revealing not safety, but a figure. A woman, dressed in tattered white, hair clinging to her wet face, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that promised pain, confusion, and endless waiting. Martin stopped dead. His throat went dry. He could hear the whisper of his own heartbeat in the oppressive quiet. The figure lifted a hand, slowly, deliberately, pointing at him. "You came back," she said. The words were soft, almost melodic, but they carried weight, a warning he couldn't ignore. "And now, you stay." The hallway stretched impossibly longer, walls bending as if the house itself were alive, breathing. Martin's instinct screamed at him to move, to escape, but his body refused. He was trapped, caught between terror and curiosity, between fleeing and facing whatever lived in these shadows. And then, a sound, a door slamming somewhere behind him, echoing through the house, rattling the windows, shaking the floorboards. The figure tilted her head, watching. Martin knew one thing with absolute certainty: whatever had been haunting the house for decades, it wasn't just a ghost. It was something else, something patient, something waiting for him to make the wrong move. The whispers grew louder, closer, circling around him. "Don't leave, stay." Martin had to choose. Run blindly into the darkness? Or step closer to the figure, risking everything to understand the truth behind the house's secrets? And as he stood frozen, the house seemed to exhale, shadows stretching, whispering, pressing him toward the unknown. Martin's mind raced, heart hammering so loudly he was sure the figure could hear it. The hallway stretched endlessly before him, shadows twisting along the walls like they had minds of their own. Each flicker of his lantern cast monstrous shapes that disappeared when he blinked, only to reform somewhere else, closer, watching. The woman in white didn't move, yet he felt her presence all around him, like a cold weight pressing against his chest. Her eyes, bright, empty, unfeeling, seemed to pierce through him, reading every thought, every secret fear he had tried to hide from himself. He forced himself to take a step forward. The floor beneath him groaned under the weight of some unseen thing. Each step felt like dragging through invisible chains, and a chill ran from his feet to his skull, crawling under his skin. The smell of damp earth and something metallic, like blood, was stronger now, filling his lungs and making him gag. Why are you here?" Martin whispered, barely audible, though his own words seemed to echo through the halls. The woman tilted her head, and the shadows around her shimmered, bending unnaturally. Then a whisper, soft and delicate, slithered along the walls, "You shouldn't have come back." The temperature dropped sharply, his breath forming small clouds in the air. Martin's hands shook violently as he raised the lantern higher, trying to illuminate her fully. Her form was clearer now, and something about her posture made his stomach knot in fear. She wasn't standing. She hovered, just slightly above the floor, her feet brushing against nothing. He stumbled backward. I'm leaving. I don't want trouble," he stammered. The whispering intensified, a chorus of voices overlapping, calling his name, taunting him, circling in the darkness. "Stay, stay, stay." He turned, trying to find another exit, but the hallway had changed. Doors that were once along the sides had vanished, replaced by endless black walls. The ceiling seemed lower, pressing down on him, suffocating him with its closeness. He realized with growing horror that the house was alive, reshaping itself, trapping him. A soft, almost imperceptible movement caught his eye. In the corner of the hall, a shadow detached itself from the wall, a small child, pale and silent, watching him. Its eyes were hollow, black voids, yet filled with unspoken warning. The child's lips moved, but no sound came out. Only when Martin leaned in, straining to hear, did he catch the words, whispered in the back of his mind rather than through the air, "Run, you can't leave." Panic surged through him. He spun around, looking for the lantern, but it flickered violently and went out. Darkness engulfed him completely, and the whispers became deafening, pressing against his skull. Cold fingers seemed to graze his neck, and he could feel a presence, something immense, looming over him. Martin's survival instincts kicked in. He ran blindly, hands outstretched, crashing into walls, knocking over debris. The house seemed to stretch endlessly before him, hallways looping back into themselves. Every corner held another shadow, another whisper, another presence. His pulse threatened to tear through his chest, but he forced himself onward. Then, the soft voice again, closer, closer. Martin froze. He knew that whatever it wasn't trying to scare him playfully. It wanted something. Wanted him. The air was thick, almost liquid, and every breath was a struggle. A figure appeared directly in front of him, a second woman, identical to the first, her mouth twisted in a grin that wasn't human. Martin stumbled back, nearly falling, and the ground seemed to shift beneath him, tilting. The two women advanced slowly, their steps silent, gliding over the warped floor as if it were water. "You shouldn't have come back," the first one said again, her voice louder now, resonating in Martin's bones. "This house takes what it wants." Desperation overwhelmed him. He reached out blindly, knocking over a broken table, hoping for a weapon, anything, but found nothing except the cold, splintered wood. The whispering grew louder, merging into a roar of voices, each one accusing, pleading, demanding. Then, he heard something completely different, a soft sobbing, closer, behind him. He turned, lantern flickering back to life for just a second, and saw the child again. But this time, the child's face was twisted in terror, reaching out to him. "Don't let them take you," it mouthed silently. Martin realized the horrifying truth: these weren't just spirits. They were predators, ancient and patient, feeding on fear, shaping the house to trap anyone foolish enough to enter. And now, he was prey. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing around him. Shadows elongated, merging with the figures, creating forms too massive to comprehend. A low, guttural growl vibrated through the floorboards. Martin's legs buckled, but adrenaline kept him moving, running blindly into the shifting hallways, trying to find anything, any exit. A door appeared suddenly, glowing faintly with a warm, golden light, the same light from before. It felt like salvation. He sprinted toward it, ignoring the scraping, whispering, laughing that followed. As he reached the threshold, his hand touched the doorknob, and a cold, heavy hand gripped his wrist. He screamed, the lantern toppling and shattering on the floor, plunging him into darkness again. The whispering stopped instantly, replaced by a heartbeat, slow and deliberate, matching his own. "You can't leave," the first woman hissed right into his ear. Martin pulled with all his strength, finally breaking free and slamming the door open. He tumbled into a narrow corridor, faint daylight filtering through cracked windows. He could see the world outside, the trees, the sky, freedom, but he knew better than to think he was safe. The house shifted behind him, walls bending, doors disappearing, leaving only darkness in its wake. And through the thin veil of light, he caught one final glimpse of the two women, their faces smiling, shadows stretching impossibly long as they watched him flee. Martin didn't stop running. Though every step felt heavier, as if the very air conspired against him. The corridor stretched endlessly, walls narrowing, closing in. Sunlight flickered faintly through the broken windows, but it was pale and weak, unable to cut through the lingering darkness that clung to him like a second skin. His lungs burned, heart pounding violently against his ribs, sweat blurring his vision. He stumbled over debris, a fallen beam, shattered glass, and cursed under his breath. Behind him, he heard it again, the faint dragging, scraping, almost musical, but perverse. The sound wasn't constant, yet it was impossible to ignore. He dared not look back. Every instinct screamed that the figures were close, waiting for him to falter. Then, a door appeared. Old, wooden, slightly ajar, unlike the warped halls he'd been running through. He grabbed the handle and pushed it open, hoping for an escape, a way out of this nightmare. The room beyond was smaller, a dim attic filled with shadows that clung to the corners, writhing. Dust hung thick in the air, catching faint light from the cracks above. As he stepped inside, the door slammed behind him, echoing like a gunshot. He yelped, pressing his back against the wall, trying to steady his shaking hands. The whispers returned, circling, accusing, laughing. "Stay, stay, stay." They were closer now, pressing into his mind. Martin's eyes darted around, and then he saw them, tiny scratches on the walls, symbols etched deep into the wood, almost pulsating, as if alive. A foul, metallic smell rose from them. He realized, with a sickening certainty, that these marks weren't old. They had been made recently, intentionally, for him. A cold breeze swept through the attic, carrying with it the soft sobbing from before. Martin froze. The woman in white appeared again, standing at the center of the room, glowing faintly, but not fully solid. Her eyes were empty yet knowing, her lips curved into that terrible, impossible smile. "You came back," she whispered, voice soft yet echoing through his skull. "And now, you belong." Martin's stomach turned. "I don't belong here. Please, let me go," he cried, voice breaking. The figure raised her hand slowly, and the shadows in the corners of the room began to move independently, stretching and twisting, converging into humanoid shapes that seemed alive. Their movements were fluid but jerky, unnatural. They reached toward him, arms elongating, fingers sharp as knives. Panic surged. Martin dove toward the far corner, searching desperately for anything to use as a weapon. His fingers closed around a rusted metal rod, barely heavy enough to swing, but at least something. He braced himself, chest heaving, trying to remember every self-defense move he'd learned. The whispers grew louder, overlapping with the low, guttural moans of the shadows. He swung the rod blindly, hitting one of the dark forms. It dissolved into mist, only to reform behind him. He realized then that brute force would do nothing here. The house itself was against him, and these entities weren't bound by the laws of the physical world. "You can't fight us," the woman said, stepping closer. "This is our home now, and you are part of it." Martin's mind raced. He needed a plan, something, anything, to survive. Then he remembered the faint light he'd seen when first running through the corridors. A memory of that glow filled his mind, a doorway, possibly a way out. He had to reach it. Every instinct screamed to run, to flee, to escape the clutches of this nightmare. He darted toward the attic window, ignoring the shadows closing in. The glass was intact but thin. With desperation fueling him, he smashed it with the metal rod. Pain seared through his hand, but shards fell aside, and he climbed onto the ledge. Outside, the world looked distorted, almost unreal, the landscape warped by the malevolent energy of the house. The shadows pressed against the glass, stretching impossibly, but the wind outside was cold, real, and alive. Martin jumped. The fall wasn't far, yet it felt like eternity. He hit the ground hard, pain radiating through his legs, but he didn't stop. He rolled into the mud, scrambled to his feet, and ran into the night, guided only by instinct. Behind him, the house loomed, still and silent, yet he could feel its presence, like a predator watching him flee. The whispers didn't follow him here, but the memory of them, the taste of fear, lingered. Martin didn't dare look back. Trees twisted unnaturally in the darkness, their shadows long and clawing, yet he ran blindly, fueled by the need to survive. His lungs burned, legs screamed, but he forced himself forward. Somewhere ahead, faint lights, street lamps, civilization, offered hope. As he reached the road, gasping for breath, he realized something terrible. His watch, the only connection to time and reality, had stopped. And in the distance, a faint figure watched him from the tree line. Not running, not moving. Just waiting. Martin didn't hesitate. He ran faster than ever, toward the nearest house, the nearest sign of life, desperate to escape the nightmare. But deep down, he knew the house hadn't let him go entirely. The whispers, the shadows, the eyes in the dark, they were patient. And they would wait. Martin's legs burned, lungs screaming for air, but he didn't stop. Every shadow on the roadside felt alive, stretching toward him, reaching. He glanced over his shoulder once and caught only a glimpse, a flash of white disappearing behind the trees. His heart skipped. The house wasn't behind him in the normal sense, but its presence lingered, a suffocating weight pressing on his chest. He reached the nearest house, pounding on the door with mud-slicked hands, gasping, trying to explain, but the world felt wrong. The neighbors' faces blurred, their voices distant, like echoes underwater. Every time he tried to speak, the whispering returned, faint at first, circling his mind, "Stay, stay, stay." They were inside him now, the shadows, the whispers, twisting reality. Martin stumbled backward, tripping over the garden path, clawing at his hair as the fear consumed him. He looked back toward the woods, toward the darkness that had swallowed the house, and felt a horrible certainty: it wasn't over. The figure in white appeared again, standing at the edge of the road, impossibly still. Her glowing eyes locked onto him. The whisper surged into a roar, pressing into his skull, feeding on every heartbeat, every drop of terror. Martin tried to scream, but only silence came out. The air itself felt heavy, thick with intent. "Martin," her voice, now clearer, more intimate, more terrifying. "You can't run. You're ours." He wanted to bolt, to escape, but the ground beneath him felt sticky, almost alive, pulling him back. Anchoring him. Shadows stretched from the edge of the trees, long, serpentine, wrapping around the lampposts and creeping toward him. Panic overtook reason. Every instinct screamed that there was no salvation in sight. Desperate, Martin reached for the only thing that had given him hope before, the faint light from the house, the window he had leapt from. Perhaps he could return, confront it, or at least see the source. He ran blindly, guided by memory, slipping through mud and broken branches, chasing a phantom glow that might have been salvation or another trap. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. Silence hit him like a hammer, deafening, pressing, suffocating. Even his own heartbeat sounded foreign. In that unbearable quiet, the figure appeared right in front of him. No distance. No time to react. Her white dress fluttered as if underwater, hair drifting, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You came back," she said, a smile stretching impossibly wide. "And now, you'll never leave." Martin's legs gave way. He fell to the ground, chest heaving, staring up at her. The air grew icy, frost creeping across his skin, his breath turning to vapor in the night. Around him, shadows writhed, elongating, merging with her form, until it seemed like the darkness itself had taken shape. Then, faintly, a whisper broke through, not from the figure, but from somewhere deep in his memory. "Run, or stay?" The thought wasn't his own, it was forced into him, like a choice he could not refuse. He scrambled to his feet, adrenaline surging, and ran again. The shadows followed, but something in the distance shifted. The real world, the normal world, returned slightly. The road ahead, the streetlights, the faint glow of houses, real and solid. Martin didn't stop. He sprinted through the foggy night, the whispers now mixed with laughter, like a chorus of something ancient, something hungry. Finally, he reached the edge of the woods. The figure didn't pursue him past the trees. She stopped, arms raised, shadows pooling at her feet. But her smile never faded. Even as Martin stumbled onto the paved road, gasping for air, she stood there, watching, waiting, patient as death. Days passed, and Martin returned home. The horror hadn't left him. He couldn't sleep with windows open, couldn't run near the woods without glancing over his shoulder. At night, he sometimes hears soft whispers, faint at first, then growing clearer, "Stay, stay, stay." He knows he can never truly escape. The house, the woman, the shadows, they are patient. Waiting. Sometimes, in the distance, he sees the glow of white among the trees, and he knows, she is still there. Watching. Smiling. Waiting for the next time someone foolish enough wanders too close. Martin lives on, but part of him never left the house. He can feel it in the dark, in the silence, in the cold gusts of wind that brush against his skin. The terror never fully fades. And deep down, he knows that one day, he will return, or it will come to him. The whispers are patient. The shadows are patient, and they never forget.